Hello and welcome to a Tech Talk from the Albert Lea Public Library. Today we are going to be talking about mobile photography tips. These days, most of us take everyday photos with our mobile devices, so either a smartphone or a tablet. Before smartphones existed, you had to have a camera, but now that we carry our phones everywhere, usually it's just a quick pull out to take photos. So I thought that I would give you some tips to make your photos taken on your mobile devices a little bit better. These aren't tips to give you, professional photos, just some tips if you're looking for some basics to kind of improve some of the photos that you take. So we're going to start with just a few basic tips. Some of these tips are specific to taking photos with mobile devices, and there's a few that are tips that translate if you're taking photos with a camera, most specifically about lighting and editing, but we'll get to those later. So some basic tips just to start out with. You want to make sure you clean your camera lens. On cameras that are just for taking photos, usually you have a lens cap on it, but there is no cap on phones, and even if you have a cover on your phone, usually the lens is exposed so that there's still access to the camera. So the camera lens can get really dirty, and sometimes there's more than one lens on your camera. So make sure you clean them with a cloth really well before you take a photo, because that can result in some weird smudges on your photos. You want to make sure you keep your device steady. With a regular camera, it's pretty easy to hold, even a disposable camera, it's pretty easy to hold, take a picture steady, but it's a little bit harder with the phone and even harder with a tablet. It's a bigger device, and it's in your hands, and there's nothing to hold on to. So if you think of a camera, there's usually grips that you can hold your fingers around, and so that steadies your hand when you take pictures. But on a phone, there's nothing like that. And so if it moves and you take the shot, then you can end up with a blurry photo. So you want to be really careful about keeping the device steady. You could invest in a little tripod for a mobile device if you think you're going to be taking a ton of photos and you want a little bit more professional looking, but just be aware that it's harder to keep your hand steady when you're using a mobile device to take photos than it is a camera. And then most mobile devices have different modes in the camera application to take different types of pictures. So for instance, there's usually a video camera in addition to regular photos. Sometimes there's a portrait mode. Sometimes there is like a square if you want a little bit different shape for a photo. Sometimes there's a panoramic photo. I've seen just other different modes. So usually they show up on the bottom of your app, and you can filter through them. So be aware that they exist. If you want a little practice, maybe take a picture with all of them on different, take the same photo using different modes and see what happens. You might find that you like one of them for different types of photos. So some of it's just experimentation, but just know that they exist and they do work. Now we're going to talk just a little bit about focus. So the mobile devices kind of autofocus, just like some fancier cameras autofocus, but it's a lot better if you use the manual focus. So all you have to do, you set up your shot, you've got something that you want to focus the photo on. So all you do is tap once on your screen, and you should see a box that will appear. And then if you keep your finger held down on your screen, you can move the box to the object that you want to be in focus. And then when you take the picture, that box will still be there to show you that that is in focus. So you can use the autofocus, but if you want a little bit better photo, I suggest using the manual focus. So zoom on cameras, zoom on a regular camera just for taking pictures works really well. The lens, you know, extends and goes out, and you get a high quality photo using the zoom. But on a phone or a mobile device, your camera doesn't actually move, right? It stays on the back of your device. And so so it's known as like a kind of a digital zoom is one term I've heard. And so if you use the zoom, your image can end up blurry or grainy, because what it's doing is it's digitally zooming in on that rather than physically zooming the camera. So it's a lot better to just get closer if you can. In some instances, you may not be able to get closer, but get as close as you can. And then you can always crop the photo later so that it just has what you're looking at. So flash. You want to avoid using the flash as much as possible. Sometimes it is necessary, but unless you have more professional, lighting, where you may see professional photographers set up their external flashes and different angles, usually using existing light always creates better photos. So a lot of times your camera on your mobile device might be set on auto flash, but a lot of people that take pictures regularly suggest that you just turn the flash off and then turn it on if you need it. And then even when you do turn it on, maybe take a photo without the flash, see if it works, and if it doesn't, then try the flash and see what kind of photo you get, because the flash can drastically change a picture. But if you have natural lighting, use that. And so we're going to talk about lighting now, kind of segue into the flash. So if you have a subject, let's say a person in your photo, you want to use the backlight as much as possible to highlight the subject of the photo. And then in addition, or if there is not a lot of backlight, you want to look for side lighting or cross lighting. So if lighting is coming from an angle, try to position that person or the object at the angle, because angles always create better lighting for photos than straight on. And you know, if you're taking a picture of a stationary object that does not move, then see if you yourself can move so that you get lighting, side lighting or cross lighting or even back lighting. And then just be conscious of that, and also being conscious of where you may have windows in the shot if you're taking an indoor shot, because windows in the background can create a really dark object for you. So I think the best thing to do is, again, like I mentioned with the picture modes on your device, take a picture of an object or a person and either move the object and the person to play around with the lighting, or you move yourself to play around with the lighting in a room. And so you just get a feel for the different photos. So you'll have a bunch of photos of the same thing with different lighting, and see if you can kind of just see the differences when you're using backlight, side lighting, cross lighting. See if you can see the differences, so you learn the best way to kind of position the photos. And then editing photos. So this is similar to if you were to take pictures with a camera, but don't be afraid to edit your photos. Mobile devices, the apps that are already installed, generally have basic editing options, brightness, some lighting effects perhaps. Usually you can change the tint of the photo, you can crop the photo, options like that. So that's the best way to do some very basic editing. There are some good photo editing apps out there that you can get in the App Store, some free, some paid, but you could do some research and look into photo editing apps and maybe the best ones that have the best rating, or apps that people recommend, and download one of those and see what kind of editing features you can get. It's pretty amazing what you can get from different apps. And so if you want higher quality photos, you're trying to produce higher quality photos, I suggest looking for a photo editing app. For the everyday person, probably the editing options on your mobile device is enough, the crop, the brightness, things like that. But know that you could look for a photo editing app if there is a photo that you're trying to really make look more professional or update a little bit. And then you can also edit on a computer, so don't forget that. So a lot of times we keep our photos on our phone, or we just send them through text, upload them to a social media site, but you can get your photos from your phone to a computer, and then you could use the software that's on your computer to edit the photos, which might have a little bit more features than the mobile devices. And for a lot of people, it's easier editing on a computer than it is a mobile device, because you have the mouse and the keyboard and you can play around with that. And then just remember, when you edit, that you are editing and then you're saving that photo as a new file, so you still have the original if you want the original. A lot of times people will make edits and then save it and then realize, oh, I don't like that. Well, now the original is the edited photo and you can't go back. So try to remember to, when you're editing, make a copy of the photo and edit that so you still have the original. So those are all the tips I have for you today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week for a different topic. In the meantime, if you have any questions about library services at the moment, our website is up on the screen there. And if you have any suggestions for topics that you want to see talked about, if you go to our website, there is a phone number and an email address right at the top banner that you can call or email and let us know what you'd like to see, and we'll see what we can do about that.